The revelation by the West African Examination Council that the Sokoto and Zamfara state governments failed to register students in public schools for the ongoing West African Senior Secondary School examination poses grave concern that resonates beyond the two northwestern states. Different narratives have actually been given by both the WAEC authority and the government of the two states. Does it demonstrate the insufferable, careless attitude to education by Nigeria's political leadership? What is the fate of students from these two states? Now, to discuss this further, we have joining us in the studio a writer and educationist, Denja Abdullahi, right here in the studio with us. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right. Also joining us via phone call, we have the Commissioner of Information, Zamfara State, Ibrahim Magaji Dosara, also joining us from Gusau. Good morning and welcome to Daybreak.
Good morning. It's nice having me in the studio this morning.
All right. So let's start with the Commissioner. Now, what is the reason behind this development? Can you give us a background of, why this has actually happened in Zamfara State?
Well, first of all, I want to greet our viewers. It is nice having me in the studio. In the first place, we have seen so many write-ups, so many criticisms, so many ridicules on both social and traditional media on our state of position regarding the payment of this year's WAEC. Well, we have not said anything because we are a government of focus, we are a government of direction, and we have decided to take this action because one, security of lives and property is number one thing for every government across the world. And we want to keep it to that provision. And number two, people should understand our predicament in the area of security challenges. People should understand the enormous humanitarian crisis we have in Zamfara State. And people should understand the paucity of funds almost every state is facing, particularly in Zamfara, where we have the enormous security challenges. When we came on board as a government, we met a liability of about 2 billion naira owed to WAEC and NECO. And the government immediately paid part of this debt owed to WAEC and NECO, which was the reason why students were able to get their previous certificates that were withheld by INEC and WAEC, by WAEC and NECO. And we had an arrangement with the INEC, with WAEC on gradual offsetting of these debts, considering the huge enormous security challenges we are facing in the state. And we have been expecting the INEC, the WAEC to come and sign the agreement on this aspect, and WAEC has not come yet. And you should understand also that WAEC is not the only examination that students can sit to, go to tertiary institution. We have other examination bodies that their time has not expired. And even the WAEC, we are consulting with any relevant authorities to ensure that our students are allowed to take the WAEC examination. But in case the WAEC refused us, we have an alternative. NECO is there, MBTE is there, and their time has not lapsed. So we are assuring the parents that their children will write the external examinations and they will proceed to the tertiary institution in the name of God. So people should not bother the parents with all these write-ups, all these criticisms that do not help matters, rather worsening matters. And again, I want to say, Lagos, which is the richest state in Nigeria, is not paying WAEC. Why Lagos is not being criticized for not paying? Parents have been paying WAEC. Not only Lagos, I think all states in the south and the southwest and the northwest, northeast and southern states in general, I don't think if there is any state that is paying WAEC, and yet they are not being criticized. Why Zamfara, that is facing this enormous crisis of security challenges with paucity of funds?
All right, so let me bring it to you now in the studio. We're talking about the security challenges, which is one of the major points that has been alluded to. So if a lot of people actually believe that the high rate of, or should I say, illiteracy and the unemployment and all these social things are the genesis of why we are having insecurity in these areas. So if by perchance these children or these students do not get the opportunity to write this WAEC examination, yes, we do know that it's not the only body. There are other bodies as well for examination, but if there are certain sections have not been able to get that opportunity to write the WAEC, don't you think it might be able to exacerbate the security problems?
Well, I think the genesis of the security problem is, in the first place, can also be traced to the failure of education. We have left a lot of our people uneducated due to so many reasons that you may not find anybody to blame readily. But the way the society has come up, you know, even the problem of insurgency, problem of fanaticism and security problem that we have, banditry on our hands, is due to failure to educate a class of people. I have read it in Trust newspaper and in several fora where the people that we blame for this insurgency, for this banditry, have said that the society has not educated us. Many of them have said it, that we're in the bush, nobody cares about us. I remember in Nigeria one time there is this concept of nomadic education, which was not even propounded, which was propounded by somebody from the southeast, who did a lot of work on nomadic education that led to the federal government to establish Nomadic Education Commission to take care of educating the nomads. Because, and that thing started very well, but at a point in time, like all projects and programs in Nigeria, it was abandoned. I mean, it was not really, the focus was no longer there. And these nomads were not properly educated. And what was left, that the result of their lack of proper education of this class of people is what we are facing now in terms of banditry. Now, so the security problem would definitely be worsened, like you said, if we don't give access to the students to write these examinations we are talking about, because if they don't write it and they cannot progress further to higher education and guided to a better education in the future, they will, a lot of them will go to a way that we don't want and exacerbate the security problem in society. So when people talk about the economic problem, the security problem affects education too, like the commissioner has said. When there are no funds to run public schools, or when there are no funds to pay teachers or to train teachers, there are no funds to equip the library, there are no funds to improve infrastructurally the education institutions in the country at all levels, it will lead to we having security problem, lead to banditry, leading to social vices that should not be there, because somebody that is properly educated, primary, secondary, university, you learn some values in all these levels of education that will now make you not to be available or accessible to something. There are things you don't do. A case in point now, for example, we have all sorts of vices in the society. Somebody will be arrested. We have been part of it before, maybe you're in the community. Somebody makes noise somewhere and they say somebody has stolen something and you just get him somewhere. And some people will rush and say, let us burn this person. You that is educated, that you know it is against the law, you stop them. I have been involved in that now. I say, no, please, you can't do this. Because you know you've gone through school and you know that there are consequences for that kind of action that is inhuman. So you will rise up and stop that and people will listen to you. So without education, you are susceptible to so many vices. So I quite agree with you that security problem, if people don't get properly educated, we'll have security problem on our hands.
Okay, now let me forward this next question to the Commissioner. Now, you said earlier that in the absence of WAEC, you know, students can actually write other examinations like NECO and NAPTEP, right? Now, but what is the situation like for, you know, the senior secondary school students in your state, you know, not having to write WAEC like, you know, their peers from other schools? And what do you think the students would actually be losing from not writing WAEC?
Well, in the first place, I want Nigerians to remember the period when we closed our schools because of insecurity, when there was mass abduction of students from their colleges and schools to safeguard their lives. And we took some time to do that. And after we gained some sanity in the security sector, we decided to employ extra or additional teachers to take more lessons for the students to be able to cover the period they lost during the time the schools were closed. And we are still trying to make the students cover the syllabus that will enable them to write and score or write and pass the examinations with the NECO and WAEC. Unfortunately, this situation came in, and that's why we said we have alternatives, because NECO and MBTE are yet to schedule their timetables, and we can enroll our students to write the examinations. It is the same thing with the WAEC. After all, many students are not even passing the WAEC. And additional problem we have here is many students, including external, are coming to write examinations under the sponsorship of the government. So, in essence, there are so many racketeering fraud in the conduct of these WAEC examinations, and is what the government is trying to rectify so that we save the little funds we have, attend to the security problem, and then attend to educational problem like other sectors such as health and agriculture. They are all very important.
Okay.
But like I said, number one thing is the security of lives of the people.
Okay, but unlike...
Number one thing that matter to... I'm coming, please. Let me just take you down. You have asked me some questions which I want to exhaust, please. You asked if in the event the students could not write NECO and MBTE, we are not hoping that. Even the WAEC, I told you initially that we are working hand in hand with the authorities that are concerned to ensure that our students are registered and they write their examination. This is what I want the Nigerians to understand about this crisis.
Okay, now what I was actually going to say was, compared to, you know, other examinations now, WAEC is internationally recognized, you know, compared to INEC and NAPTEP. Sorry? NECO and NAPTEP. So WAEC is actually...
but why should Nigerian government create NECO and MBTE if it is not important? Nigerian government create the bodies as substitute for WAEC, which I believe they created it because many Nigerian students are not passing the WAEC. So it is better to do what you scale through than to do what you waste money and then you don't scale through. So if you don't pass WAEC, who will recognize you internationally? So they're not, it's not helping the matter. You understand? So the substitute brought by the federal government is very crucial to Nigerian students. They passed this WAEC, and it is the reason why Zamfara State decided when it came, the Zamfara State government, the present government, when it came, it sponsored 200 students to study abroad.
Okay.
So it's all the same thing. It is just an alternative that is being provided to students.
All right, now, Mr. Abdullahi, you have
Yes, I
something
have
to say
a
on this?
response to that. You know, while we quite appreciate the fact that the Zamfara state government is like sponsoring their student wholly in terms of paying for their WAEC fees and the NECO and like a free education, it's quite appreciable considering the level of poverty in that society. You know, in Nigeria, in the north, many parents, the level of poverty is very high in northern Nigeria, east, northwest. But at the same time, like you mentioned, in other parts of the country, parents are paying for their children. We should be able to develop our society to the point where parents should take responsibility for the children that they give birth to. At the same time, government also have a role to play in creating a level playing field for the students. If government have to pay for the student, they must ensure that those payments are not in any way in jeopardy. Education is very important and should be the basic principle. It's the first. If you talk of development in any sector, peace, security, economic progress, and it's education that is the foundation. So if it is the foundation, we shouldn't joke with it. There are international precepts that says that a percentage of the country's budget should be reserved for education. So if the government will pay those bills, they must put it on the first line charge. Yes, that is, even if there is no money at all for that sector, education must have that money. So, but if the government cannot do that, there must be a way in which this cost should be transferred to the parent. And if the parents are poor, you must improve the society in such a way that an average parent will be able to pay for his WAEC or NECO and other fees. Now, when parents are not part of this scheme, they don't take it as important. It's not everything that we can put on government. So we should lessen the burden on Zamfara state government by creating a kind of way in which parents will gradually start paying for their children. And if the government must take charge of those payments, the government must not joke with it. The security problem is the one I can understand in this situation, where security has impinged on Zamfara so much that even to go sit in the school and write an examination is even a problem. We all appreciate that. That is a basic problem that I see that is very, 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 very seminar in the problem that we're having. But the problem of funds, I will not agree with that.
But when it comes to the issue of funds, I think at one point, parents were paying for WAEC, because I think the issue of state governments sponsoring WAEC and NECO came at a later time, because I remember when we wrote WAEC during our own, we paid from our own pockets.
Even in this situation, there are actually reports that some parents who can afford it have actually enrolled their children through private schools.
But why is that the point? Nigeria has gone gradually bad economically.
So that's the thing, because if parents were able to pay for
before
back then, you understand, I don't think there should be an issue going forward if that can happen. But just like you said, some other things need to be put in place. You know, the economy needs to be improved so that the parents can actually do that. So let's speak generally now, not specifically this particular situation. I just want us to speak generally, because you touched on something that had to do with the importance of education and dedicating funds specifically for education. Generally now, do you think we're actually doing enough? If we look at how important education is to the development of society, are we doing enough for education in Nigeria, or even northern Nigeria, let's say?
Of course, it's obvious that we are not really doing enough, in the sense that if you look at the baseline that will tell you 30% of our budget should be on education, we've not made that. It's clear for everybody. Each year budget is presented and is analyzed. Those who analyze the economics will tell you, look, we're not meeting with UNESCO or the UNESCO standard of a particular budget to be used to fund education. Now, if other countries like Ghana, some smaller countries surrounding Nigeria, some of them are way up there, higher than we are. So we should address that first. Then we should now look, although Nigeria is very huge, and the financial implications of the hugeness of this country is quite enormous. If you are not in government, if you are not on their side, you will not know what they are really facing. That because every sector of society must be touched. But all the problems we've had with education in Nigeria may not even be a function of lack of money. For example, as we talk, we have SUBEB. Sometimes I'm not in that sector, but when I look at the humongous money that is available that are not assessed, matching fund, counterpart fund from states are not coming it's not being matched to access funds from SUBEB. I wonder, with the funds in SUBEB, WAEC, there should be no school in Nigeria that should be dilapidated. Sometimes when I go to my community and I see a dilapidated building, school building, I say, I will reflect, why should this be there when funds are lying there unaccessed and used? So the problem in Nigeria is for us to prioritize our funding arrangement to make sure that the funds that are even available for education goes to that sector. And of course, you look at the problem we have now, ASU, and they will tell you, this is they're asking for. You see your other stories coming from Nigeria that shows you that the funds are in this country. The issue is the proper application of funds. Even if we are going to borrow, let us borrow to fund a sector that is very fundamental and obvious. Until we address this problem in Nigeria through oversight, through commitment, through sincerity, through proper monitoring. Even the schools that we are talking about, the problem of some schools in Nigeria are lack of adequate monitoring. Inspectorate division, are they still working? Because if the inspectorate division of the various ministries of education are working and they go out to look at what is there on ground and they report the way they used to do when you were in school, when I was in school, when things were going very well, we care. So this care is just what we should bring back to our system. Let us care for things. When we do that, we'll solve all our problems. That is my belief.
Okay, now this question is for you, Commissioner. As a Commissioner for Education for a northern state, you know, you'd actually agree that Nigeria is ravaged with an out-of-school problem. Now, according to reports, there are over 10.5 million children that are out of school, and the highest numbers are located in the northwest with 4.1 million. Now, would like to know, in your opinion, you know, whose obligation is it to provide access to education in the north, and how worrisome really is our reality, you know, especially as regards education in the north?
Well, Husseina, it is very unfortunate that northern Nigeria is considered always at the back in terms of education and even other essential things, simply because there is no commitment from most of the people who benefited from the government. For instance, I have been sponsored by the government to go to school up to the university level. I graduated and got a job. It is the government that gave me the job, and I'm being paid monthly. I'm supposed to take responsibility of the education of my children. But instead, I allow my children to take sponsorship from the same place where a rural poor person that wanted to be sponsored to study. So in essence, government are not responsible in terms of supporting government. I mean, the people are not responsible in terms of supporting government to the education of the children. And that is why the burden is too much for the government in northern Nigeria. And as such, we have that number of out-of-school children, and which unfortunately is part of the reasons why we have this insecurity within the region. But I can tell you, with the efforts of some governments and the contribution from the parents, we can get rid of this problem in the northwestern Nigeria. Of course, it is the government responsibility to provide the essential needs of the people, but going by the paucity of funds, like I said, and the current situation of insecurity, the task is too much for governments within the within the northern Nigerian state. So it is the responsibility of those who benefited from the system and the government to put heads together to get rid of this problem. Somebody who has grown to the professor level is always relying on government to pay for WAEC for his children. Somebody who has rose to the rank of commissioner or permanent secretary, earning a lot of money, relying on government to pay for WAEC for his children. I mean, this cannot help us. Unless otherwise, we all come on board and said, okay, whoever has the opportunity to be sponsored by government and got job, a good job, should not be given the opportunity of paying WAEC for his students. And I'm telling you, if government concentrates on spending the money on the children of the poor, we will not have this crisis.
Well, Commissioner, a lot of people are actually of the belief that, or of the opinion that it's not really a paucity of funds that is the issue, but rather the allocation or prioritization of how we allocate these funds. That is the major issue that we're actually facing, not really the lack of those funds. So what do you have to say about that? Do you think that these resources are being adequately allocated?
No, it's not the issue of allocation that matters. Like I told you, I think you were saying when you wrote your WAEC, there was sanity in that time, and everybody knows that we never had this problem, unless this present time when we have diverse crises that the government has to sponsor, has to take care of. For instance, we have over 700,000 IDPs in Zamfara state, and we have to take care of them. No day passes without us having one kidnap or one attack or the other, and we have to take care of the people. We have a lot of natural disasters. We hear every day, we have people that their houses or their premises were submerged by flood or other catastrophe, which the government must take care of. We have the health sector, which is very crucial as well. So it is the basic fact that we have paucity of funds. How much money is being gotten from revenue in Zamfara state, for instance? We earn not more than 200 million naira monthly from the internal revenue generation sector. And how much are we getting from the federal government allocation? And out of this, we pay salary of 1.4 billion naira. Assuming we have 3 billion naira from the federal government, plus 200 million naira from the internal revenue generation. We spend 1.4 in salary. We pay debts which were owed previously, and this debt is being deducted directly from the source of 1.9 billion naira. Tell me how much will left for the state government to carry out essential services, pay for the security operations, and do a lot of things, including the humanitarian crisis. So you understand, or let you understand, that it is the shortage of money. Otherwise, all these crises, you wouldn't have been seeing them happening in most of our states, particularly in Zamfara, that is facing serious security challenge.
Okay. Now, Mr. Abdullahi, now you touched on security, a while back, and according to a UNICEF report, you'd actually agree with me that a lot has actually been done, when it comes to education in the north, prior to when insecurity came, and so according to a UNICEF report, estimates that 800 schools, in some northern states, right? 802 schools are closed, 497 classrooms listed as destroyed, and also 1,392 classrooms damaged but repairable. Now, in the north alone, and thousands of schools are actually forced to shut down, due to, insecurity. Now, what is the impact of this on access to education and also the quality of education?
Well, the figures you just gave shows that a lot of damage has been done to education. And when they quote out-of-school children population, they come from these damages that you just mentioned, in the sense that when schools are shut down, when people cannot access education, when there is no peace in society, education will even be very difficult to access. Now, it has done a lot of damage in the northwest and in the northeast. But we should also look at, in this scenario, we should be very creative and be innovative. I'm trying to divert our attention to what is happening in Borno. In the midst of the insurgency in Borno, that is damaging, that is terrible, we have also seen how the government of that state has tried to improve education and improve access to education by the same citizens that are under very virulent insurgency. Although we will say that we cannot compare Zamfara with Borno in the sense that Borno has a lot of interventionist scheme from outside, NGOs, national NGOs. They've given them a lot of funds there. And that same funding procedure may not be in Zamfara. So, but in the midst of that, the state has rebuilt schools and they've tried to, in a way, do some kind of mobile school, mobile access. What we should do, so we have to mitigate the problem of insurgency, the problem of banditry that has made many schools to be shut. We have to mitigate it by also devising some measures where our children education should not even stop, even in the midst of that. There was a time government was talking of safe schools, backed by UNICEF, the same UNICEF and the UN, to make our schools safe. And that was a very big project that started 3-4 years ago. We should interrogate what has happened to that safe school schemes. Is to keep our schools safe. If we have to bring soldiers or security men to guard school, we should do it so that our children can access education. We should not succumb to the problem. And if we are not going to succumb to the problem, we should bring some innovation into it, some creativity. We are also in an age where we rely on social media, we rely on technology. So there's a way we can bridge all this disruption with the technology. So it's to engage in Nigerian expertise. We should go back to our people from all over and pull them together so that they can help us bridge this problem. The problem in the Northwest is terrible. If you live there, if you are there, if you know that some of the things we are saying here, if you are not there like the commissioner is saying, you will not know the impact of such problems. So we should, but in the midst of all that, I still think we can continue with our children's education by innovation, by also ensuring we deploy public resources, the federal might, to protect schools, to also solve the problems that we have.
All right, let me ask the commissioner now. We talked about insecurity being one of actually the major thing that is affecting education, and we said that the lack of the education actually breeds more insecurity. So I think we're faced with like a chicken and egg situation. So which one should we tackle first? Because insecurity breeds a lack of education. A lack of education breeds more insecurity. So which one should we look at first? Is it the educational sector, maybe educating these people, and then, or we should deal with the insecurity challenges first?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Even in the Constitution, it says the primary function of government is to protect lives and property of people. So as far as Zamfara State as a government is concerned, security is number one thing for us. And it is after the security, then the education comes. There is no how you can educate people when there is no security. Just like what happened in the past, like I said, which led to the closure of some of our schools because of insecurity. But now, alhamdulillah, we thank God that the security is being restored in almost all our schools, and most of our communities are now safe, and we are now bringing back the students. That's why I said we are doing everything possible to make sure that they cover their syllabus, which will enable them write and pass their WAEC or NECO or MBT, as the case may be. So as far as we are concerned, education is number one thing. When you security is number one thing. When you tackle security, then you handle education along with health sector.
Okay.
And this is what Zamfara State government is doing as present matter is concerned.
All right. So, Commissioner, can we have your final thoughts on, this particular topic?
Yes, my words are, one, people should not just jump into conclusion in criticizing issues they don't have knowledge about. And I also want people to always be fair to government and the people that matter in particular issues. We should always go into details in making research about issues that affect public before we go into making controversy about it. Because the more we do the controversy, the more we generate other controversies that is bringing unhealthy relationship between people and even sometimes our peaceful coexistence. And for the press, I want you to always be deep into your research when you are talking about the issues. For instance, I saw an editorial by Punch newspaper about this issue of Zamfara State. They never had any contact with any official from Zamfara State. They just went and started writing things they never had knowledge about. And even the figures they cited are those figures that they collected on social media platforms, which is very, very wrong. But I must praise you, the Daily Trust, the Trust TV, and the Daily Trust newspapers. You made a lot of contacts to me to verify things, to find out things, how you can put them across the public to understand what is happening. So that is what other journalists should copy from you, to always try to contact people that matter in terms of issues they are trying to write about. Because writing things that are not correct mislead the whole society and is causing a lot of chaos in the society, and that is why we are going forth and back in terms of development in Nigeria.
All right, thank you very much, Commissioner.
We're all negative, everything negative.
Thank you very much,
Without
Commissioner.
finding out.
Yes, we're actually running out of time, but thank you so much for your thoughts. Yes. All right. So, Mr. Abdullah, in 1 minute, while you share your final thoughts with us, you know, there's a saying that says, it's the children we fail to educate today who will return tomorrow to terrorize us. So how can we actually get all hands on deck to strengthen education in northern Nigeria?
Well, I think we should, government at both federal and state levels should review our educational system that is operating now and look at the problems that have developed that were not there before, and try to find solutions to those problems. We should also bring our education in tune with modernity in terms of funding, access, in terms of the pedagogy, in the even curriculum. We should review all this because the components of education is infrastructure, curriculum and pedagogy, and the teachers that are dispensing this knowledge. All these various sectors need a total overhaul and review, so that we could have all our children in school and they will be taught what they should be taught for national development and peace and progress of society.
All right, thank you so much, writer and educationist Danger Abdullahi, for joining us in the studio today.
Thank you very much.
Also, thank you so much, Commissioner of Information, Zamfara State, Ibrahim Magaji Dosara, for joining us on the show today as well.